What has happened to Salman Rushdie is, I think, shocking to every thinking person. And at another level, it's something which has a history leading up to it of 33 years. Salman Rushdie was attacked this week prior, my understanding is, to giving a talk in New York, and he was gravely injured. I believe he is expected to survive, but might lose an eye and has serious damage, which will impact him from here on through his life. This is presumably the result of a fatwa issued 33 years ago by Ayatollah Khomeini, based on the fact that he had apparently delivered offense to Allah in the Satanic Verses, a book of fiction that he penned. And he has lived under that threat courageously for all of those decades. And I learned in looking into that fatwa that apparently there is a monetary reward offered. It was increased in 2012, several $1 million that has been offered for a person who eliminates him.
It was never lifted, and several of the translators of his work into other languages were attacked, and I believe a couple of them were killed. So even translating the work is deemed worthy of is deemed a mortal offense.
Yes, and although the Iranian government has distanced itself from the fatwa, the monetary reward was raised by a semi-official entity connected. So this is really a fundamental question about how the world is to be run, what is within the purview of a nation state and what is not. It is also well worth noting, as many people have, that there is some comparison to be made between this violent act and cancel culture. And of course, one comparison that could be made is that cancel culture, in which you are simply stigmatized and ostracized and maybe driven from your chosen profession, is certainly preferable to being attacked by a knife-wielding madman. But there is a way in which this is a difference in degree, but not in kind. These are both instances in which people are preferring a system in which what may be said and what may not be said is dictated by some authority, and that those limits should guide discourse and be severely punished when they are violated. And there is an alternative, of course, which is the alternative upon which the West is based, in which individuals are free to think and to say essentially anything. Now, of course, there are limits worth talking about, but in the realm of ideas, in the realm of narratives, should you be free to express anything and be challenged if what you have said is vile or dangerous, but not be silenced. And of course, this is in one way counterintuitive, because everyone who believes that certain things are right, in whatever way things can be right, and other things are wrong, would of course prefer a world of the rightness flourishing and the wrongness being absent. But the problem is, as the American founders correctly realized, the truth is counterintuitive. That even though most ideas that are expressed are probably at best valueless and very frequently wrong and sometimes downright dangerous, the most dangerous thing is an environment in which you cannot express ideas that are not sanctioned, because that is a world in which there can be no progress. That is a world frozen in some state.
It's the frozenness, really, which I think is what many people who think that free speech should go by the wayside are not recognizing. It is also the height of hubris. It is an arrogance that comes of imagining that now, finally, after however long it is that you want to keep track of in the past, finally we have arrived at a moment of perfect understanding. And whereas we can all look back on previous moments and say, oh, weren't they confused? Weren't they small-minded? Weren't they ignorant? Didn't they not know the things that we know now? It imagines that we are now omnipotent and omniscient, and that we have full possession of not just the knowledge, but also the power, and therefore that we want the full possession of the power to make sure that everyone who doesn't yet see things as clearly as we do can be forced to be relegated to basically be our underlings.
So I wanted to try to put this in context of a model that longtime listeners of DarkHorse will have interacted with many times in many different contexts. In the comparison between fatwa culture and cancel culture, you could view them as distinct and one preferable over the other, or you could view them as the same thing in a different form. That the purpose is to make sure that what is accepted by fiat rather than by some process in which we all participate. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing that I think needs to be explored. One of these is obviously religious, right? It is by religious authority that the fatwa on Salman Rushdie was issued. And the other of these is nominally secular.
Yes.
That is the wrong way to think about it, though. It is true at a factual level, but it is untrue at a deeper level. And what I would argue is that we come, all of us, irrespective of what lineages we emerge from, we all come from a world of religious authority. Every lineage has that feature up until some point at the least, and some of them continue to have it. Those religious authorities are the result of an evolutionary process. And what I've argued many times, and I'm going to argue here again, is that you cannot found a religion in the same way that you cannot write a myth. Mm-hmm. You can write a narrative, and then selection can act upon narratives, throwing out almost all of them relatively quickly after they are written, preserving a few that have some kind of value, and then honing them and turning them into durable myths.
Yes.
And the same thing can be said of a religion. You cannot found a religion. You can found something that functions on those modalities, which I would say is correctly understood to be a cult. And then a very tiny fraction of those cults turns out to have some sort of durability, lasting power, and capacity to, in some way or other, enhance the lives of believers and adherents.
Yeah, and cult always has a negative valence to it, a negative connotation. But if we try to put that aside for the moment, what you're arguing is that a story with staying power can become myth, a cult with staying power can become religion. But at its origin, neither a story nor a cult has the capacity to, at once, at its inception, call itself either myth or religion.
Right. I apologize. So what I'm getting at, I agree with the point about the negative valence. I think we need to stop having a negative valence for cults and stories, and we need to think about them in terms of the chances that one is a durable one are very, very low. So our skepticism of both things, right? A story can be entertaining, but what are the chances that a story is valuable? Well, if we know nothing about the content of the story, it's very low. And the same thing for a cult. What is the chance that set of beliefs and traditions is more beneficial than it is harmful to adherents? Chances are very, very low. But all the religions of the world that have succeeded in protecting a population and facilitating its flourishing have started there, and all the myths have started as just stories as well. So
yeah, I think we need different words though, because cult does also mean something different and specific, and there are plenty of stories that don't have the capacity to turn into myths. So I would say this is an imprecise mapping.
I don't think so, but I think it does require extra precision to get there, because somebody who imbues a cult with the capacity to advise that person as if it were a religion that has withstood the test of time is making an error. So the point is that the negative...
I didn't follow that.
The negative connotation of the term cult comes from the fact you wouldn't say that a a book that contained a description of a candidate religion was itself dangerous. It is the adherence to it. That is to say, people who ascribe it with that kind of potential, that kind of value in the present before it has stood the test of time and before it has been refined by selection in any way, are making an error. They are treating something with the capacity to advise that it is not yet known to have. So,
that's fair. I don't think that addresses the question of how, I'm not prepared for this conversation. I'm not remembering the various technical definitions that have been proposed for what makes a thing a cult as opposed to some other small organization. And I think that there are characteristics of cults that are not inherently found in religion.
Well, so the part that's important for the argument that I'm making is that the value of these things has never been in their factual accuracy, right? And this has tripped up secularists who look at the factual inaccuracy of many of these belief systems and imagine it to invalidate the whole project, rather than saying, actually, factual accuracy was never the point. What the point is prescriptive. How should you behave, right? And because these traditions, the ones that have withstood the test of time, I'm not arguing that any individual one is good or bad, right? There may be some that are pure bad. Probably all of them have components of both. But the point is, when, as I've argued many times, a literally false, metaphorically true idea is one that if you behave as if it was true, you do better than you would if you behaved according to the fact that it is false. And so in this framework, you have the ability to hand down ideas that may be factually in conflict with the evidence, have people behave as if it is not in conflict with the evidence, and for some reason do better. Now, what I'm arguing is that cancel culture is doing exactly this. Cancel culture, wokeness, is strangely indifferent to the fact that what it claims is factually true is so deeply in conflict with what is well understood already.
And observable by simple means.
Simple means, right. And so this, I think, again, this is tripping. We who are highly skeptical of the woke revolution are in some ways tripped up the way scientific secularists are tripped up by religious claims that are obviously not right, like the earth is 6,000 years old, right? Secularists are often, obviously it's not 6,000 years old, therefore it is invalid.
Oh, so the tripped up, by tripped up you mean we find the obvious falsehood and we say, that's all you need. That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
we're done here. Clearly, this makes no sense. These people aren't serious. They're not paying attention to reality. Therefore, can we just stop already?
Right.
And that's neither, it has been often discussed that is actually not the right way to dissuade people who believe a thing with rationality and logic in the face of a firmly held belief. But I think you're coming at it from a slightly different perspective. You're saying this is ineffective in understanding what it is because we're stopping too soon in our analysis of it.
Right. We're like people who want to drag a geologist to a creationist and say, show them
the strata.
Right. Show them the strata. Show them just how long-lived the thing is, and then they'll understand that thing they believe in is wrong. And the point is, factual accuracy about the nature of the dirt was never the point, right? Where the universe came from was never the point. Where people came from was never the point. The point was always, how should you behave?
Right.
Now, the dangerous thing here, and the thing I want to distinguish, right? Obviously, if I have to pick between fatwas and stabbings and being maligned on Wikipedia, obviously I prefer the latter, right? However, the ancient version, is at least about something. Now, again, I'm not defending anything about it. It is absolutely vile that somebody stabbed Salman Rushdie.
You're trying to explain it the same way you have tried to explain the Nazis.
Well, yes, but I'm also saying there is something, the fact that cancel culture has some analogy in the sense that it wants to fiat belief, that it wants to fiat beliefs that are in conflict with factual evidence and is completely indifferent to the comparison between the two, is about the fact that this is some sort of brand new cult, right? It has two things going against it. One of them is it wants perfectly dangerous, insane things, and it is in no way tested by any process, right? So the point is, it's like somebody came up with this bullshit and now wants to hand it down with the authority of God. And the point is, the authority of God is not about a deity. The authority of God is about the test of time, and no time has passed here, right? So what we're watching is a cult of some kind of power structure that wants the right to alter the most fundamental things about civilization on the basis of beliefs that are completely wrong, but it hasn't even demonstrated that it knows anything that would allow it to last a decade, right? Nothing at all.